Greetings, everyone. My name is David McLeod. I'm your Life Mastery Coach. Welcome to Soul Empowerment, episode number 58. And today we're going to be talking about loving your anger. Now, I'm going to steal the spotlight for a moment because, you've heard us talk about our book, Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. Well, it's now been published. And I am very fortunate to have a copy in my hot little hands here. And what's more, this book has already achieved #1 bestseller status in the United States, and it's achieved bestseller status in 3 other countries. So we are an international best-selling book now, and that's due to all of the great work done by many, many people, including Sarah and Scott, who are both co-authors of this book, and also Eileen, who's listening in on this show. So I just say I'm really excited. I know that we're having an impact because people are responding all over the place. And in this time and what's going on in the world, and speaking of anger, well, there's a lot of anger in the world today, isn't there? So anyway, I'm not going to take up any more time, but I had to say that because it's just bursting out of me and I cannot shut up about it. So I'm going to now go around the circle and have my co-hosts introduce themselves. And today I'm going to start with you, Sarah. Would you please say hello? Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do.
Sarah Jane, I'm in the UK, and I was able to say I was a published author before because this is actually my second book that has been published. But I have the feeling this one's done way better than the first one did. And I was a multi-author in that. And I work with sound energy, Reiki. I just love connecting with people, supporting people, especially with the inner child and the healing of hurt, pain, and trauma. And sort of something that's sort of come very more recently to me is actually that hurt, pain, and trauma may cause you to become a people pleaser. But actually, I think that means with those people, bless them, especially the child aspect, there is an awful lot of anger buried within them. And so, any support that we can bring to support the inner anger that is being held on by people, it's really important.
Right. And thank you, Sarah, for that. We're going to get more detail in the topic in a moment. But before I do that, I'm going to ask Gail. Gail, please introduce yourself, who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Yeah, happy to do that. And before I do, I just want to congratulate and acknowledge you, David, Sarah, and Scott, on the book, and what a great achievement. I can't wait to dive in. Started reading the book and looking forward to getting through and reading all the wisdom that's there. So great work. Great job. I help I'm Gail Nowak. I'm in Massachusetts. I help spirit-led wellness coaches and leaders in the wellness space create authentic, healthy business relationships without hiding or silencing themselves so that they can communicate boldly, lead lovingly, and make the world a better place. And I do that using an energy-first, healing-centered approach to guide clients from hiding in plain sight to becoming a bold and gentle leader in the new earth paradigm. If you want to connect with me or talk more with me, I'm always open to a conversation. You can find me over at gailnowak.com. And I'm really excited to talk about this loving your anger conversation today, because when we are able to harness that in a healthy way, that's some potent medicine and empowering energy. So looking forward to diving into this.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. And thank you for the kind words as well about the book. Scott, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Hi, Scott Holmes. I'm on the other end of Boston, down the other side of Massachusetts. And I am an intuitive energy healer. What does that mean? It means I use Reiki polarity therapy, theta healing, coaching to work with professional men and women to be able to get them grounded, to get them centered, to get them healed, to be able to for them to step forward. And one of those things that I work with is anger and where it comes from, where they feel it, how they deal with it, where it comes from inside, what traumas have caused that, why they're angry, the boundaries that have been passed that they can't necessarily voice. And so it comes out as anger. And I love this topic. And I am thrilled to be able to deal with these three masters. And when I say masters, I truly mean it in the best sense of the word, in that they get it. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Scott. And you're right. This is a big topic for sure. And I remember when we were discussing it, there was a lot of stuff coming up on that conversation, as I recall. And, being the kind of person who enjoys controversial titles, I thought, let's really stir up the pot. Let's call it Loving Your Anger, because that's kind of counterintuitive. A lot of people in our society, we have this very, very negative view of anger. We think of anger as a horrible, negative, destructive energy that does nothing but cause problems. And, certainly some of that is true, but that's not all that anger does. And it's certainly not a bad thing unto itself. It's just emotional energy. It's all it is. And the question is, the bad stuff that we see, the bad reputation that comes on top of anger, has to do not so much with the emotion, but with the way people process it. And so I think most of us have learned rather dysfunctional ways of dealing with our anger. And that's part of the reason that we have such a negative view of the topic. If we could learn, as Gail suggested early on, how to embrace that anger and express it in a way that is more healthy, we could do a huge service to the whole world. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to talk about this. So, Gail, you had that thought initially. Why don't you dive in and share what your perspective is on the topic?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I've definitely been one of those people who had a very, I'd say, fearful relationship with anger. Growing up, feeling powerless in the upbringing that I experienced, and feeling like I didn't have a voice, and even if I did speak up, wasn't heard. And so I think that all played into my own distorted thinking around anger and how to express it, and even how to understand what it was for me, what that looked like for me, what that felt like for me, and what to do with that emotion. And I definitely tried to stuff it down. I used to say all the time, I hate conflict. And here's the funny thing about that, right? Nobody really, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but most people aren't out there saying, I love conflict, right? But when we're saying, I don't like conflict, what I started to recognize, for me anyway, is I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this in a way that feels like it's honoring me, but also feels that I'm being respectful to the other person. And I think that that's really the place where we get tripped up with anger, because it has a purpose. It has a purpose. Often it's telling us that there's an unmet need, or a boundary has been crossed, or there's some sort of injustice that needs to be addressed. And when we can, even in our private moments, when we can simply acknowledge, I am feeling angry about this situation, without any excuses, without any apologies, and be really radically honest with ourselves of, yes, I am feeling this anger, without jumping to the judgment of ourselves and of the emotion that we're feeling. We make space for clarity to come through about how we want to be, how we want to show up, and what action we want to take next. So I've learned that actually when we can dance with our anger, when we can voice it for ourselves, before we go out and and start voicing it to whatever that external situation is, that it helps open us up and move that energy and can actually bring us to a place where we can have healthy conflict, where we can start to then take those steps that are respectful, that are not just, blowing up on somebody. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens, right? And we'll probably talk more about this later in the show, but we're all human and we make mistakes. And it's really about being responsible for that and then going back and doing repair work when that happens. It's not about being perfect. It's not about avoiding making mistakes. And it's certainly not about taking our anger and putting a muzzle on it, because it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah, right.
That's what I learned. And I love, Sarah, that you talked about that. The inner child. When I started to really go deep into inner child healing, man, did I have a pissed off inner child. And she had no voice until I was willing to actually listen to how angry that inner child was, without that judgment, and simply saying, of course you're angry. Of course you're angry about these things. And that's when, a lot of things started to shift in my life. I started to make friends with my own buried anger, and, a lot of unwanted, maybe from the outside perspective, unwanted things happened. But really what was going on is a lot of things that were built on a faulty foundation were crumbling, because the truth was ready to be expressed and acknowledged. So that's the power. I feel like that's the power of our anger. I know for me, like, it's an empowering emotion when we are using it wisely.
Right. I don't like conflict. I think most of us would agree on a spiritual level that is a true statement. But I can tell you this, when I get activated and my ego mind starts taking over, I actually love conflict. In fact, I want to make it even worse. I want to blow things up. I want to destroy things. That energy is pulsing through my body. And I want to say this. I recognize that happens in me. And I honestly think that all ego minds are like that. Ego minds tend to have this idea of competition, of trying to be right, be better, be stronger, be bigger, all the rest of those things. And some people are better at controlling their ego minds than I have been in my lifetime. And this is something that I've been learning over the last 20 years, I would say, how to do a much better job of that. And I recognize when that ego mind gets activated, I just want to beat the crap out of that guy. I want to rip his lungs out. I hear myself thinking those thoughts and having those really, really bizarre energy movements within me. It's not because of the anger so much. It's because of the ego mind's desire to take control and have everything under its control. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, you talked about feeling that power to do something. And you're absolutely right. Think about anger. I mean, it's probably the strongest emotion that we have, right? In terms of raw power. And learning how to take that power and use it and can channel it and move it in a positive direction. That is where the real effort comes from. And so, as you were saying, if you can eliminate judgment and just simply be with it and allow it to express, to acknowledge, I'm feeling anger right now. and then asking yourself, how can I process this in a healthy way, rather than letting the ego mind start to, get all, controlly-woolly or whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Sarah, it looked like you were ready to jump in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No. I admit, being the people pleaser that I was for so many years, I bottled my anger because I didn't feel I had a voice. I certainly couldn't express what I was thinking and feeling because of that people pleaser thing. Oh, what will they think of me? And I did. I bottled and bottled and bottled my anger. And it really was like a volcanic eruption when I went. And there was no controlling it or me until the steam ran out. And it wasn't just verbal, it was physical. And I've had to accept that about myself. But this was one of the great things about the Wake Up. It was actually, if something annoys you, makes you angry, makes you feel uncomfortable, then you either have to accept that you say something, or you don't bottle it, you just have to let it go. And it's that ability to be able to do that. Is this important enough? And I was very open about something that's happened very recently that really did make me, it made me uncomfortable, it made me unhappy. And I thought about it, and it was, no, I'm actually going to keep quiet, because this is what's been given me the gift of realizing just how much anger there has been inside of me. And I took myself into the woods for a walk, and I sort of went into a walking meditation of talking to my little self. And I said, okay, let's go into a bit of a meditation while we're walking. I'll come with you, and we'll take ourselves in that meditation to somewhere we feel totally safe, and we are going to let ourselves have a blooming good scream. Now, obviously, I did not scream out loud in the woods, but within the meditation, we allowed ourselves to have a really good scream, to be able to release that pent up energy, harming no one, but allowing us to be free of some of it. I've done some other work with her sort of over the last couple of weeks as well. And I know she's sort of, it's happened before. She's gone off with the likes of Mother Mary and Grandmother Anna and sort of my dragons, and but it's our dragons at the end of the day. They're here working through me and with me to support others. But it's also about when I can go into that aspect of what am I doing to support myself, I can then do more to support others. For me, our healing journey, that gift is something we can bring to others that can hopefully, as you've sort of talked about, Gail, as you talked about, David, and I'm sure you'll talk about, Scott, we can support people to go through it hopefully more quickly and more easily than we have.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
anger,
yeah.
and anger is for me, anger is a real gift. If we can get out of the ego mind with it and, okay, how can I speak my thoughts? And you only need to raise your voice if you don't feel listened to. But do you know what? If you're angry at somebody for something they've done and they felt that they've done exactly the right thing, then is it not your stuff? So it's opening.
Yeah. Who knows?
So it's opening up to all of those things and gaining an understanding of what's just happened, what has caused you to feel like this, and potentially instead of you reacting, is there a gift in this for you?
Yeah, beautiful. Scott, what do you have to say about this?
A lot of points. So we were talking about this, and I've been really thinking about this. And as a child, what did I get angry about? And it was injustice. What I thought, it isn't fair. Not fair. I would get grounded for something, and my sister would do the same exact thing, and they'd say, "Oh, go ahead." And it was not fair. So it was those injustices as a child. When I got to be a teenager, I got mad with my sister, and I pushed her, and I pushed her on the bed, and she all of a sudden she couldn't breathe, and I was shocked. I didn't mean to hit. I was just angry, and I just pushed her out of the way, and she had lost her. She just kind of lost her breath, and it scared me that I had thought I had hurt her really badly, and so I equated anger with bad. Now, people, when they get angry, what do? Some people slam doors, some people scream, some people get in their car and drive fast, some people, break dishes, some people just see red and they're uncontrollable. And we always equate anger with the dark side, right? Every villain, right, has some reason to be angry at everything and everybody, wants revenge. The anger is always that shadow that walks with us right behind us and ready to pounce so that we can do that. And what I've found is that when you acknowledge anger, especially in somebody else, if you're in a relationship, especially if they get hurt or they get angry, acknowledging, I see that you're angry. And let's talk about this. All of a sudden it just brings it down. Because if you match anger with anger, there goes David, nuclear option, right? Everything goes crazy, everything gets thrown around, things get said that you can't ever take back. And that's really, I would internalize anger, by the way, Sarah, much like you. I did the garbage, when you throw it in and it compresses the garbage, and it just kept all my emotions. I kept doing this because I thought emotions were bad, because if I expressed them, I got ridiculed or told I was silly, or if anger came out, I was afraid I might hurt something or somebody, or so I kept suppressing it until in my 40s, all of a sudden the lid blew off. All of these emotions are coming out. It's just like spewing out like a volcano, and I did not know how to deal with it. I'm trying to bring them all back so that I can push them back down, because I didn't want to deal with them.
Trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
I really did. And it was a really tough time in my life, because I spent so many years in my adult life not dealing with the emotions. I get angry. Oh, I feel bad about it. Oh, okay, push it down until it didn't fit anymore. And it just came bubbling out. And that's really what turned in my adult life. That's where it kind of turned around, where I had to deal with those emotions. My wife used to tell me that I didn't have emotions because I never got really upset. I never got really down. I never got, I was within here.
Mm-hmm.
I had those emotions. It was just expressed them differently and knew that it was moderate. But anger, I found now, I use it as internal to allow me to step forward. If I get angry with myself about something, I use that as energy and inspiration to step forward. I don't like this. Okay. What are you going to do to change that? If you're angry about it, where does it come from? And are you going to use that energy to make sure it doesn't happen anymore? To make sure that you solve that problem? And so I use that energy. And you're right, David. It is one of the most powerful emotions that we have. And
well, if you think about it, all these energies that we have are associated with different archetypes. And anger happens to be associated with the warrior archetype because, as you mentioned, it's usually tied to this idea of injustice, boundary violation, various other things like that. For me, I'm thinking back to my childhood now because this hasn't really happened very much in my adult life. If I ever got angry, and even when the ego mind started activating, I hardly ever got violent. Very rarely. I don't think I broke a dish in my entire life. When I was young, I'm writing about this in my new chapter with Anna. When I was young, I got so angry, I just smashed the wall with my fist. I think I did more damage to my fist than to the wall, but in any event, that's what happened. That's the way my body reacted to it. And the thing is, and what I want to say about this, not all anger is going to be expressed in that way, but there's about a 99% chance that when you start to feel anger, your body wants to move. Your body wants to move somehow to get that energy, let it pass through. It's kind of like having an electrical cable that has too much power going through it, and it's just shooting all over the place, trying to figure out how to distribute this power. Well, go ahead and let yourself feel it, but look for a way of expressing it and feeling it that doesn't do harm to any property or any person or to yourself. Those are the three things you got to remember. So, you talked about breaking things. Well, one trick I learned a while back, and this is when I was in a men's group, I went and bought myself a hardwood axe handle. Now, why an axe handle? It's just got the right shape. That's it. I mean, a baseball bat could work as well, but baseball bats don't seem to last as long. But you take this hardwood axe handle and you find yourself a tree that, maybe you've had some kind of a spiritual relationship with this tree and say, I need you to help me get this anger out. And you beat the crap out of that tree with the axe handle. Now, that movement, that expression, that just allowing that energy to flow through, along with any other, verbal kinds of expression, I find personally screaming is really, really powerful. It is powerful. It gets a lot of that energy out. And so I have no problem going out into the woods and screaming there, But if you're a little bit embarrassed about screaming, you can get a pillow and put your face right in it and scream with every force of your energy. Just let it come out. Right? Because, like as Scott says, at some point you're going to ask yourself, so what is this all about? What's this really all about? And while you're in the process, you might be pointing fingers outward and saying, it's his fault, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's her fault. You caused this, you did that. But when you come right back to it, eventually you're going to say, those people just did what they did. All of this energy is right here in me. I'm the one with this energy. I have to take responsibility for it. So this process, loving your anger, is not about giving yourself permission to go around beating the crap out of people or creating arguments or generating conflict or doing anything like that. It's merely about having enough self-love to be able to say, yeah, this is what I'm feeling. And then, as Sarah has already said, maybe reaching in and talking to your inner child and bringing some love to that part that maybe didn't get the kind of attention he or she deserved at that very young, tender age. That's what your anger is really all about. So use it as a tool to guide you to your own self-healing. Dale, sorry, you had something.
Yeah, no, I love thinking about it as a tool and as a guide for growth and evolution and having even deeper and richer relationships. I think that that's probably one of the surprising benefits that I've experienced is when you make space for anger, in your own body, in your own feeling, and then you're using that in a way to relate with others, using that in a healthy way. it sounds maybe counterintuitive, but it actually, with the right people, it will deepen those relationships. With the people who maybe aren't for you, it will reveal that maybe these aren't the right relationships for me. And so I think that the more we are able to be honest with ourselves about that anger and to, like we've been talking about, to channel it for good, right? For good, for growth and for deepening our connection with people. It kind of neutralizes the stories that we tell about why anger is bad or that anger is bad. I was talking to one of my kids, and in our planning meeting, we were talking about being feisty and, passion, and passion is on that spectrum of anger.
Mhm.
And I know that sometimes when I talk, especially when I'm in casual environments or with people who I'm really familiar with, sometimes I get a tone and it sounds like I'm angry. And a lot of times, like, people mistake that for being angry. It's like, no, I'm fired up. I'm passionate. But my youngest said, Mom, why are you yelling at me? But I love that she felt comfortable enough to bring that forward. And I was like, ooh, yeah, okay. I hear you. I just modulated my tone. I was like, okay, let me try that again. This is what I'm trying to express, and brought it to a different frequency, a different volume, a different tone altogether. So there's that piece too of really understanding the nuances of anger, right? Because sometimes it is that really sort of obvious, I want to move, I want to explode, I want to, scream into the pillow. And I am one of those. I'm one of those people who will bury my face in the pillow and actually scream. And then everybody's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good now.
I'm good.
I'm good. I got it out. I needed to get it out. And it doesn't always have to look that way, right? It doesn't always have to be that explosive thing. You can be in that energy of feistiness or passion. And people will, if you notice and pay attention, like you'll see when people start to get uncomfortable. And sometimes that's about them. And sometimes that's simply an opportunity to stop and sort of reevaluate, like, okay, what am I doing here too? What's my role in this as well? But there was one more thing that I just wanted to say. And sometimes there's no verbal communication. There's no physical communication, but energetically, you can feel someone's anger just radiating off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was often my experience growing up in a household that didn't have any violence, didn't have a lot of yelling, but had a lot of loud talking, but not a lot of arguing and yelling and that kind of thing. But when my mother was mad, did I know it? Did I know it? Because I felt it, right? So sometimes anger is a really sneaky thing. It can be kind of in that passive aggressive way.
Oh my
too.
God. Yeah. Don't get me started. That's one of my biggest triggers when someone's passive aggressive. God damn it, get it out and tell me what's going on. No more of this passive aggressive bullshit. That's how I'd respond to it. But I wanted to say something here, Gail. First of all, I don't think we do ourselves any kind of service by comparing our way of expressing anger with somebody else's. Your body is your body, your soul is your soul, and it's going to have its own way of doing things. No one way is better than another. Now, having said that, I will say that if your way happens to cause damage to yourself, to some property, or to somebody else, then you probably will have to do some cleanup after the fact. And you will have to make amends for that. That's something you're just going to have to take responsibility for. But as long as you are expressing in a way that doesn't have any negative impact on anybody else, then your way is perfect, as far as I'm concerned. Other people might not agree, but that's my perspective. So I just wanted to say that, and I think that we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people in every respect, but in particular in this respect, because as we've already said, anger is such a strong energy, and it certainly shows itself more readily than most other emotions that we have. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out. Scott.
Thank you. I was thinking about where most of my anger comes from, and it's from judgment. It's judging either other people, a situation, or myself. And well, don't get me started. Gail will understand this. When you're driving in Massachusetts, everybody else is wrong when you're driving, not you. And the anger comes out in that way. And it's kind of how we're taught to drive. But judgment is where, for me, and I feel it right here, and it's judgment. And when I finally made friends with my judge, he was sitting up on the bench, and everything I did, he had something to say about it, whether it was too high, too low, not good enough, should have done it better. That's from my upbringing. The other thing about the emotion of anger, if you've ever walked into a room after somebody's had an argument in it, okay, in the room, and they've left, you walk in the room, you feel that energy, you feel that emotion,
the residue.
It's the residue. You wonder where ghosts come from. I think it's just people being pissed off too much, and it kind of hangs around. Maybe. But the other thing I and I've talked to some of the people I work with, some of the clients, and about anger, and I said it's a superpower. And what? I said, I want to thank you for using your superpower for good rather than evil. Use that to spur you on. Use that as knowing that you have something else to work on, that there's somewhere in your childhood, teenager, young adulthood that needs to be spoken to, and use that. And it turns out a little bit and allows you to see things a little bit differently. Sarah, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
I'm going to first and foremost say to our viewer, Eileen, who is actually classes herself as a recovered angry person. So Eileen, thanks, and thanks for the comments that you've been putting into the chat as well. Couple of points. If somebody says something, and I know I've said this before, and I will keep saying it, somebody says something and you feel that, ooh, ask them if they meant what you heard, not what they said. Because in the majority of cases, people mean what they said. You, however, didn't necessarily hear it for the meaning they had. But also, if you've said something and you watch somebody's body language and suddenly they stiffen whatever, and you can be doing the same. You can say, what did you just hear? Because it might not be what I meant. And by actually trying to come into it at that point, you can potentially prevent so much anger. Because you're talking to it at that point in time. And you're saying to somebody, I have listened to what you've said, or I am watching and hearing your body language. Let's talk. Let's see if we can iron this out. If somebody meant exactly as you heard it, then you can make choices. and if you meant exactly what the other people heard, then they have to make choices. But unless you talk, how are you going to know? It's just complete misunderstanding, judgment of something that's been said, all these super negative words that we're very good at doing, and we're trying to step away from. And the other point can be very much, I think, more to do with children, and mixed messages. Sort of as a child, you do something and your parents laugh. But then you think, oh, good, that made them happy. So you do it again. And then it's, no, they don't laugh so much this time. It's no longer funny. It's not something they actually wish you to be doing. And then you get into trouble for doing what has made them laugh. Now, I get that it is difficult for adults because, yes, it can be amusing what some children do. But if that child is in an extremely, that place of feeling so negative about themselves, especially if they're in that place, which I was, had no confidence in myself, no belief in myself. They probably didn't realize that, but that's how it was. So to have them laugh and think, oh, good, I've made them happy, to then within a couple of times of doing it, actually getting into an awful lot of trouble. That is such mixed messages. And is it any wonder that there is anger held within the younger self? You laughed at me. Now you're telling me off for exactly the same thing. I just don't know how to deal with it and with you. I'm scared to almost do anything because you might appear to be telling me it's okay in one breath, and the next breath, I'm getting told off for the same thing. And mixed messages can be so detrimental to children, but it can be to adults as well, until we sort of get a hang of the fact that, okay, yeah, people are people.
Well, one of the things that we as adults can learn, and perhaps which we do not do a very good job of teaching our children, is that I have no control whatsoever over how you feel. None. I cannot make you happy. I cannot make you sad. I cannot make you angry. I cannot make you afraid. Those are just projections. That's all they are. And we have adopted that kind of language throughout Western culture and maybe throughout the world. I don't even, I haven't learned Japanese or Taiwanese or any of these other languages. So I don't know for sure if they use the same kind of idioms that we do. But ultimately, we try to put the cause of our issues, whatever they might be, positive or negative, externally. We try to externalize them. We say, this caused this. Out here caused this. That's what we do. And we do it right up until many of us, we die believing that's the right way to be. Some of us are lucky enough to learn that, wait a minute, I really don't have that power. I don't have any control over what you feel. Sure, I understand that certain of my behaviors will give you, will trigger you in some way, and you will have this kind of reaction. And maybe that's the way our relationship will be forever. I don't know. But the reality is, each of us, all of us, have to take responsibility for our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own actions. We have to take responsibility for that. I can't blame you because I got triggered just because you happened to say something the same way that my mom used to say it when I was 5 years old. You never met my mom. How would you know? See, so all of us have work to do, and it's called work for a reason. you know, we can try to put a positive spin on it as much as we want, but it's still work. We have to do the work. We have to go within. We have to find the wound. We have to find love and light to heal it. And only I can do that for myself. You know, I cannot do it for you, although as a coach, I can help you to do it for yourself. So I know I harp on this a lot because I think it's really important. And maybe somebody who never saw one of our previous videos will see this one and get that message, and maybe it'll finally come through. I don't know. But all of us have to take that responsibility. So I just want to put that out there. And Dale, I'm seeing a lot of nodding and maybe a little shaking there. What's going on?
Well, number one, I want to speak to Sarah's tool of using that phrase. Did you mean what I heard? I know that you've shared that before, and I've used that before. And one thing that I've noticed is when I have the presence and the awareness to ask that question, usually what I heard is not what the person meant. And it is a great tool to gain clarity and to dissipate something that has the potential to spill over and unnecessarily spill over. And I love today, I think this is, you may have shared it before, but this is the first time I'm hearing you also saying, if you're noticing somebody else's response to you, checking in with them about what they're actually hearing and what meaning they're making of that. I think that those, I don't want to underestimate or gloss over just how powerful being aware and present and bold in asking that really can be. So I wanted to speak to that. And David, you said something, and I was going to say something about it, and now I've completely forgotten. So
It must have been just
maybe we'll come back. Yes. Oh, I know what it was.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go. The taking responsibility for it. It's so interesting, right? Because this is definitely this theme of someone seeing somebody else do something or hearing somebody say something, and that evoking a feeling within that person, but then not taking responsibility for that feeling. One of the times where I expressed some very clear and I'm going to call it righteous anger actually had to do with a situation where one person was feeling a set of feelings because of a situation, and another person got involved and then became the messenger for that person, and then was having a disagreement with me and my family. And that made me very angry. It made me very angry. And one of the things that I said in my anger was, we are all responsible. We're all adults and we're all responsible for our own feelings. And in that moment, that type of anger felt extremely aligned and pure. And you can tell the difference between anger that's coming from wounding and triggering, and maybe you're going to have to do some repair work, and anger that is truly serving a purpose for everybody who is involved. And they're different, and there is a place for that. There's a coach that I follow, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but the way she describes it is clean burning anger. And I just love that description of it.
You could save a few words and call it propane anger.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there, it just goes back to the point that we started with. It has a purpose. It's sometimes that purpose really is to speak a truth or reveal something that needs to be addressed. So those were the two things that I was kind of like, yes. I want to I want to say more about these things. Thank you.
Well, again, just to bring more awareness to language, I noticed that you said that situation made me angry. And I'm just bringing attention to the language here. I do this too. I'm sure we all do this. And I'm bringing it for myself as well as for everybody else. The real truth is I began feeling anger as a result of watching this and having this experience take place. It showed up inside me.
In that situation, I was angry.
Yeah. I began to experience anger. So if we can shift our thinking about how anger arises, and instead of, pointing the finger out there and saying that made me feel, I think we can start a huge movement towards personal growth by doing that. It just makes things so much, well, it becomes now an ownership thing. Since I am feeling the anger, I am now empowered to do something about it. Whereas if you make me feel, and that can be really true, then somehow I have to control you. I have to stop you from doing that. Do you see the difference?
Mm.
That's the point I'm trying to make here. And it's unfortunate that our language has been so, polluted with phrases like this. And I hate to say it, but I think in some part, this has come about because of our, psychotherapy movement. You got to speak your feelings. And we teach people, speak your feelings. And so people are saying, well, I feel like you're an asshole. That's not a feeling at all. It's a pure judgment is all it is. And I'm trying to pretend that it's a feeling, or I feel like. How often do you hear I feel like? Or I feel as if, we say those things all the time, not even thinking what they really mean. When I say I feel like or I feel as if, what I'm really telling you is I think, I have a story, I have a judgment, I have an interpretation. The feeling associated with that might be anger, it might be fear, it might be sadness. But do you see what I'm saying? We use I feel to describe pretty much anything. And we have polluted our language. So part of my goal, I guess, is to try and maybe clean it up a little bit. Let's put some filters on the flow of this polluted water and start using the word feel in the correct way. That's my invitation to everybody. Scott.
My invitation for everybody is to, when it comes to anger, is feeling. David pointed it out. But what is feeling? It's being in your body. When you are grounded and in your body, each emotion that you feel comes from a different spot. I did these exercises. I was with a psychotherapist for about 5 years after my wife passed, and she did amazing work. And she would say, well, she would always start off, where are you feeling that? Where in your body? And it really made me stop and really take evaluation of where is it coming from? What part of my body? Where is it feeling? The other thing with emotion, especially anger, is the damage it can do internally. If it is not expressed, that is, you get ulcers, right? You have this anger all the time, you have this strong emotion, you have all this energy right here, and all of a sudden you end up with an ulcer because of the stress that it's caused.
Or worse.
Like anger, or worse. It can manifest itself in different parts of your body. So be aware of the emotion and where you feel it in your body. You can do yourself an incredible service, health-wise, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, by dealing with anger, by making friends with anger, and not have it on the backside, on the dark side, on the shadow side, carrying it along with you all the time. You take the weight of that off of you. You feel lighter, you feel more present, and you feel much more solid in your body. Wanted to bring that aspect in.
Well, thank you for that. And just remember, our previous episode, we talked about feelings, didn't we? And really the concept of feeling as being a combination of sensation, emotion, and thought. And so what you're describing, when you get into your body, you're feeling sensations, really, movements. And the emotion, that's a hard one. I'm not sure that emotions arise in my body. Sensations absolutely do. That absolutely is true for me. But emotions, I'm not sure about. That's kind of just like energy, So I don't know how I would articulate it. I just know that I think if people can just do what you suggested, do that inner body scan and notice the sensations. What emotion do I associate with that sensation? What thoughts do I have associated with that sensation? What message is that part of my body trying to convey to me? If you can do that, you can. That's a powerful practice. And I strongly encourage people to do that. That's a great reminder. Thank you, Scott. So we're getting close to the top of the hour here. And Sarah, I know that you had mentioned having some kind of a meditation that you thought might be appropriate for today. Did you want to share that?
Bearing in mind, I think it would take a bit longer than the time we've got. So the suggestion here is, I talked about going for that walk in the woods with my inner child. My suggestion would be, if you can just find a space. If you've done meditation before, you can take yourself into that meditation to a safe place. Invite a younger aspect of yourself to come and join you, and both be there. And you know what? If you want to scream, if you can't scream out loud because there are other people around you in other rooms, but allow yourself to scream in that meditation. Allow the energy of the anger, the hurt, the pain, whatever it is that you're holding on to come out. And it doesn't matter. You could actually find, because I think I found at the end of it, what we were both doing in the meditation was laughing, because we'd had a really good scream and then we were able to laugh. So within a meditation, you can do anything. You can swim underwater for hours, sort of, you can go out and into the universe. It doesn't matter, because you don't need to breathe, sort of the oxygen that we need to breathe here. So you can use meditation to support you, to support your younger self. And I make the suggestion because that's what I did for myself, and that's why I thought it would be something that people could be doing. And I will at some stage create that meditation as a video, because I think it's a powerful meditation that will really help people. Sort of, and if you can't find it in yourself to let yourself scream out loud. I couldn't go and scream in my local woods; they're not big enough.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Sarah. That's. I love those sorts of things. I know you're going to have to leave here shortly, so I want to say thank you for being here. Dale, do you have any final words you'd like to share before we close out?
Final words. Well, I'm hoping that those who are, watching the replay, and Eileen, thank you for being here, and for sharing with us what's speaking to you. I'm hoping the takeaway here is that anger it has wisdom for us, and we can't access that wisdom if we suppress it. And so when we give voice to our anger, even if we're giving voice to that anger in the privacy of our own home, our own room, and with no one else around, then we start to open up to the wisdom that's available to us from that anger. So hopefully this helps those who are tuning in to understand what we mean by loving your anger. It is a part of being human, and accepting our own humanness along with our divinity really is part of the path to growing and connecting and having those deep, rich relationships in our lives.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Scott, final words.
Final word is ditto what Gail just said about living fully in the human experience, about taking in all the emotions. That's why we were put here, is to feel, in this 3D body, right? Is to feel. So there are no bad emotions. Sometimes there are just bad actions from them. And thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. So everybody, there you go. That's it for today. Love your anger, and in the process, love yourself. There's really not much more you can do to improve your life except by loving yourself. So if you'd like to catch the recording of this or any other episode of this show, you can find those on my website at Your Life Mastery Coach. And I also want to remind you one more time about this book, Gifts of Wisdom. It's now available for you on Amazon, and I'm going to drop the link right there in the chat so you can pick that up if you like. Let me just do that right now. There you go. This is a bit.ly link that I created, so that'll take you directly to our book page. Pick up a copy, buy a few copies for your friends, and let's get the word out, because that's really what we're here to do, is to raise awareness and improve life for as many people as possible. So thank you again for being here. I'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye.
Bye.